This is episode 4 of Trading Bot Sessions, where we talk with traders who have built automated trading strategies and trade everything from stocks and options to futures and crypto. In this session, I speak with Brett Glover, a full-time futures trader that has developed a disciplined approach to trading NQ futures to support longer-term swing and position trades. We cover how Brett made the transition from working full-time to trading full-time, how he works closely with his wife on his trading and treats his trading like a business, how he's overcome losses and dealt with risk, including how he overcame a devastating 11 losses in a row after trading futures for the first time. This is a slightly different episode in that Brett and I also worked closely prior to the episode on turning his discretionary approach into an example automated strategy we've dubbed the 855 EMA crossover strategy, which can be found in the description. It was developed in PineScript for TradingView and can be fully automated through Traders Post. I'm currently running walk-forward testing on it and will be posting updates in the coming weeks. I trust you'll enjoy this episode of Trading Bot Sessions with Brett Glover. Well, thanks, Brett, for being on the show here, and I'm really excited to get to know your background a little bit more, how you started as a trader. So maybe you
Yeah,
can introduce yourself and your background really as a trader, the journey that you've taken, and tell us a little bit more.
sure. My name is Brett. Of course, I've been trading for just about 3 years, almost four. Started in COVID, just like a lot of other people. Actually, it was my wife who kind of got things started. She had mentioned at one point possibly looking to buy airline stocks. I think at the time, and I didn't even know what a broker was at that time. So I didn't think much of it. I looked into it, got bored, and moved on. And maybe a month later, I had a colleague at work approach me about getting two free stocks on Robinhood, I think at the time. And I came home, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Came home, told my wife about it. She's like, didn't I just ask you to do that like a month ago? So, um, kind of got to give credit to both. But yeah, so that's kind of where I got started. Knew absolutely nothing. Started kind of chasing some of those penny pumps along the way with some of those groups. And as I started to learn and realize kind of how the market worked, that seemed a little bit off. And so I joined a momentum trading group and really started to learn from that point and kind of took off from there. So, yeah, I think it's been what 4 years now. Gosh, man, I absolutely love it. It's just something new every day.
Can you tell us a little bit about that momentum group? Was that where
Yeah.
you ended up taking one of your first trades, or?
Yep. Actually, that's where the group where I learned the 855 cross strategy. And their kind of motto was buy high, sell higher, right? So they did a lot of Fibonacci work, which is where I kind of got started with that. A lot of the TTM squeeze from John Carter, kind of playing breakouts, things like that, which is of course easier to do in a bull market than now. And I learned a ton from Elliott Wave, Fibonacci, just how to read a chart. It was the first legitimate group that I'd been a part of, where the founder of it actually spent probably a half an hour answering my questions through direct message on Twitter. And I was like, well, if somebody's willing to do that, I got to imagine their paid service is probably pretty good. So joined them up with them and spent, oh gosh, almost 4 years with them. So that just kind of got to the point where, I was kind of just ready to move off on my own and kind of work on other things.
So were you doing all this while keeping a job at the same time, or how did
Yep.
you balance everything?
Yep. So I was working full time as a financial services recruiter. And when I wasn't working, I was reading about the market, whether it was a new strategy, an indicator, correlation between different asset classes, whatever it was. I consumed anything and everything that I could almost 24 hours a day, it felt like, which actually led to a lot of struggles because I was kind of learning so much about different indicators and strategies. I never really kind of sat down and just picked one. So it was kind of, knowing a lot about or knowing a little about a lot, but not really having a plan. And so I went through quite a losing streak for a while. Couldn't figure it out until I kind of finally buckled down and decided, hey, I'm going to have a trend trading strategy. I'm going to have a range trading strategy, and I'm going to leave it at that. If I can be disciplined with that, then I can kind of grow from there. So took a lot of hard conversations with myself to kind of do that.
During that process of being on a bit of a losing streak, how did you manage your psychology through it and your risk through all of that?
Well, that was really the hard part. So I've always been great at risk management because when I started trading, initially it was, like I said, some of those really cheap penny pump stocks. And then the group that I was trading with, the momentum trading, they were all options. And so, I was diving into buying call options and things like that, but I've always been terrified of losing money. I hate it, which is why I don't go to the casino really ever. But one of the things one of the guys told me was treat your trading like a casino, and not as a gambler, but as the house itself, right? You know your edge. You're going to have losing streaks. Keep your losses small, but you let that play out over 1,000 trades, you're going to come out ahead, right? Why do you think casinos have table limits? Because they don't want somebody to get one big win and kind of walk off, right? They want all those little things over and over again. Same thing with your trading. You know, take the small trades, keep your risk small, let it work out over time, and it will.
Do you have anything that you felt like was a major discovery or a breakthrough that got you past that losing streak then?
I think honestly it was when I committed to those two strategies, and I would come into every day with, okay, not trading in the first half an hour. I'll take a look and see what's happening. What are we doing? Are we ranging? Are we trending strong? Are we trending awfully, uh, or terribly? Kind of identifying from there, and then deciding if I was gonna which strategy I was gonna use, and if neither of them really worked at the time, I would just stay out for the day, which is a lot harder than I thought it would be. So I actually had to get out of the office and go for a walk or something like that, just to stay away from it.
Yeah, no question. I think there's often this belief that there's something to trade every single day, and sometimes there
Mhm.
is no trade. That's hard to maintain that discipline, right?
Yeah, I still think that honestly. I mean, sometimes I'm like, you know, I'm looking at this. Oh, I could figure out a trade here, and that's gotten me in trouble a few times to the point where it's like, yeah, I don't do that anymore. Now I just honestly enjoy watching it during the day, even if I'm not in a trade. I'm just fascinated by the psychology behind the candles and everything.
So aside from having good risk management and good discipline for when you take trades, did you have any other processes you implemented that made some improvements as well?
Sure. What I found out after a little while was getting into a trade was easy. Managing it along the way was really challenging. And even to this day, I still struggle with it a little bit, kind of holding on to some of those trades. Where you can see the profit that you've got, and you're like, "Eh, I should just take it here, and you just kind of cut yourself short. Um, and so, just kind of really trying to develop a plan for each trade from entry, trailing, target, etc., and really sticking to it and just telling myself, okay, if you can't do that, then get up and walk away and maybe come back in 15 minutes and take a look at it and see how it is. So physically removing myself seems to be the best way to keep myself in a trade over time.
So initially you said you were trading options with the momentum group. What helped the decision to leave options and move into futures? And did you
Yeah.
did you look into equities before that, or talk about the asset class choice you made there?
Yeah, I did look into equities. I didn't have the capital to trade the amount of shares that I wanted to. And especially being under pattern day trading made it really tough. So I figured, because when I was buying options, it was maybe one, maybe two call options at a time, but you get a nice hit with a great trade, that's growing your account quite a bit. And so I was able to kind of use a cash account for that. And then I actually joined another group at the same time as the momentum group because I didn't know how to what they called, I think, dip buying at the time, which now as I know is just kind of getting a pullback. I didn't know how to do that, right? Because that's not what they did. They were taking the breakout trades and everything like that. Um, and so I joined this other group to kind of learn the other side of the coin, so I can be able to trade momentum. I can trade pullbacks. Typically whatever the market offers. So um, at some point, I had linked up with a guy who traded futures primarily NQ, which is what I do now. And I did humble brag time. I did turn out to be a pretty darn good trader in reading the market and figuring out my style. And so I hopped into trading NQ, and I went 0 for 11. I had never done that before, and it blew my mind. Like, how is this doing this? And so that just drove me to just absolutely study NQ. And so that's what I did. I studied NQ, figured out, hey, futures have a lot of leverage to it. You don't have to worry about, the Greeks and beta and what have you with options. So, I always wanted to just kind of narrow down my list to one or two things. And really now it's one thing that I just trade full time. That's NQ. So, but yeah, going over 11 on it and being humbled really, really badly is kind of what got me going on it.
Got it. And for maybe the uninitiated, can you explain what you mean by 0 for 11?
Yeah, I took 11 trades on NQ and I won none of them. I took 11 losses in a row.
That's what I heard, and I'm
Yep.
curious how that impacted you during that period.
Oh, I was angry. I was like, there's something I'm missing. Um, I didn't realize the volatility behind futures at the time, or at least as much. And, so I was trying some of the, momentum trades that I had learned, right? And I was getting just trapped left and right and getting stopped out, only to watch it, of course, turn around and head in the direction I was trying to get to in the first place. Um, so I took a step back, stopped trading it, went back to options, but I studied it whenever I could and just trying to figure out what patterns and why and what people are seeing. And that's where I really kind of dialed in my Fibonacci's and figured out what really works well on NQ. So, and then slowly, really slowly started with MNQ to kind of keep the losses small until I could get comfortable again and not only just getting into a trade, but staying in it.
So I suspect then too that might have been the period of time that you implemented the rule to not trade the first 30 minutes as well.
Yep, exactly. And I still don't trade the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, I figured out my trading style now is honestly, I'll sit back, even half the day, because I like to see the pattern develop and what's happening. And inevitably, at some point during the day, it's like, that's what's happening right there. Then I can dial in. So, and that's my setup. And then I just wait for an entry trigger and I can maybe take one or two trades a day and be done.
So today then, now that you've gotten past this initial journey with some of
Yeah.
the groups that you worked with, do you have any resources that you still rely on that are helping you build your knowledge and improve your skill set?
For the most part, the groups I was with, I'm no longer with now. Just, you know, life got crazy with 4 kids and everything like that. There's still, I highly recommend both of them. They're great traders, and the nice part is they show you the wins and the losses, right? They kind of walk through, hey, here's what we saw, here's what didn't go right, why, and they did like a group analysis together to kind of figure it out. So I really highly recommend them. Um, and primarily now it's just I have my strategy, I have what I'm looking for. I play around, I do a lot of bar replay on TradingView and kind of go back through, study candles. At the end of every trading day, I'll walk back through and find out, hey, what setups was I looking for today? How many did I miss? And because looking back at a chart afterwards is totally different than real time. So I'm just trying to get better from that standpoint.
As you review those trades, have you found any particular lessons in how you would have traded them differently after the fact?
I mean, occasionally, if a trade doesn't work out the way I think it should go, I used to get upset about that. Like, this is the way I think it should go. Why isn't the market going that way? Not, at the time didn't realize the market does what it does, right? And so then I took a step back and figured out, okay, if it didn't go the way I thought it would, why? Did I miss something on the time frame I'm looking at? What about a couple of time frames up? Somewhere I missed something. What is it? And I'll look into it until I figure it out.
So these days, in addition to the technicals, do you have any other fundamentals that you look at to set up your trades or decide what you want to do for the trading day?
I take a look at the overnight session. I'm a big fan of looking at the 4 hour initially and really taking kind of a macro fib to figure out, okay, here's where we are, here's where I think that we're going. And from that standpoint, then I can go down to a lower time frame, whether it's 15, 5, or 1 minute, and use fibs there to figure out, okay, here's the pattern that I see. I know where we're going. I know where our destination is. Right now, I'm going to use the lower time frames. Is how are we getting there? And then I would just look for, retracements and just different patterns that I recognize on NQ that happen over and over again. Seems like.
So do you have any common mistakes that crop up that seem to be pervasive?
Oh, sure. Even still, I cut myself out of trades way too early a lot of the times. In fact, I did that today, and it stems from just the PTSD from the volatility of NQ. Because I've had trades and I've held it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hold it till I hit my target, and it'll just completely turn around and take me out. And so now I build a better plan, of course, and it's just the psychology of I'm okay losing this money, right? I'm okay risking it, putting it on the table because I think we can hit this target. I'm going to systematically trail my stop, this way. If I lose money, fine, I'm okay with that. If I win a little bit, I'm okay with that too. So
Makes sense.
easier said than done. It's still a work in process from that psychology standpoint, but it has helped a lot for sure.
I know we were introduced through John, our CEO
Mhm.
here at Traders Post, and the initial objective was to see if we could take the crossover strategy that you currently have on EMAs and turn it into a systematic approach. I'm curious what your thoughts are around what we've ended up developing and first impressions that you've had, and even expectations that you've had about whether it would even perform or not.
I was skeptical whether or not it would perform or not. Honestly, I was a little bit nervous because I have so many strategies that I like to try out or use, and but that one's always just been one of the core ones that I've kept in my pocket that I use over and over again. And then as far as, you know, expectations on how it would perform, I was always skeptical of back testing for a while, because I always thought, using the bar replay, oh, I want to see it in real time, right? And I kind of write down my trades and things like that. Um, but then I slowly realized, kind of talking to John and seeing the video that you did, like, hey, you can do that, but also take a look historically how it's performed. You know, you can make tweaks here and there and really kind of get that bigger perspective of it, not just kind of going candle by candle. So I actually learned a lot from that standpoint.
Yeah, do you have thoughts around how you might use automation in the future now that we've kind of been through this process?
Yeah, I love the idea of automation. Honestly, I don't know if it's something that I could honestly do on a day trading standpoint, just because I honestly, I like looking at the charts during the day, but I also know one of my biggest weaknesses is I don't have any patience. And so that's why I've adopted usually some quicker trading styles. But I would like, if I look at higher time frame swing trading or even short-term momentum trading, I think automation for me would just be perfect for that. Because that way I can, have the automated strategy go off. I don't have to look at it. I know it's doing its thing. I'm not going to get jumpy and take myself out early, things like that. So,
I'm pretty excited to be working on a new strategy with you. I think the next one you have is around a range trading strategy. You want to
yep,
talk a little bit about that?
sure. Actually, it's kind of a combination of something that Linda Raschke and John Carter both do, but it's basically using the Keltner channels and waiting for a close above or below the channels and looking for RSI to be oversold or overbought, ideally having some divergence in there, and then finding an entry and taking it, well, I use fibs, of course, to the 1618, but whatever target that you're comfortable with.
And you're primarily trading that on NQs as well?
Yeah, it's all on NQ for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to kind of dial in the settings for the Keltner channels to figure out what worked best, but I think I'm pretty sure I've got it at this point.
For as long as you've been trading now, do you have any kind of long-term goals on performance or your equity curve? Is there a
Yeah.
horizon in mind?
Um, Honestly, for me, it's, I like to think of uh, trading as kind of cash flow, and that's one thing that I learned from the second group that I was in is, you know, use trading, kind of the day trading as cash flow, and use swing trading or position trading as, kind of building wealth. And so that's kind of the approach I take, trying to, generate more capital, to put that back into the market on some longer term holds. And yeah, and just kind of keep the family going. Ideally, making it full time. Hopefully on a beach somewhere.
You've gone full-time as a trader with no other sources of income, or are there other
Uh,
sources?
no, I actually went full time back in December of 2021, which is a big leap. And honestly, that's actually a great part of the psychology I probably could talk about is relying on that. But it's gone wonderful. It's gone really well now that I kind of got all the hurdles figured out, kind of treating it like a business. And then back in July, my supervisor for my old company reached out to me because they were hurting on one of their teams, and they said, "I know you're doing your own thing, but would you mind coming back and, even if it's just part time, kind of helping us out because you've got knowledge of what you do." The fortunate part is, as I talked about, not having patience. As I would get my trades done for the day, I started getting into a habit of kind of watching it and trying to find another one and getting into a little bit of trouble that way because I didn't have anything to occupy my time. And so it was fortuitous that he had reached out so that I could occupy my time after I was done trading, just kind of working and helping them out.
One thing to unpack there, as you made
Mhm.
this choice and leap into full-time trading, Can you tell us a little bit about how you managed that with your wife and with your family and how you made that decision?
Yeah, and she was all on board. I mean, she's been supportive of the entire thing the entire way, right? She knows me as one, if I find a hobby of sorts, I can focus in on it and usually make it pretty successful. I did it with poker back in the day, before they before they banned that. But no, she's been great. One of the things I didn't really consider and anticipate going full time was the psychology shift of, hey, this is your income now, right? There is no more income stream. So if there isn't a trade that day, you need to be comfortable with that. Or if you take a loss, you need to be comfortable with that, and really having the discipline to not panic about it, not, search for a different trade to try and make up what you lost or didn't even get into, which I did a couple of times, honestly. And fortunately, just kind of chatting with her, we figured it out. And, so now we have a great system where it's more so like a business, like I should have done in the first place. But so now that we have that down, it's run pretty smoothly.
I can imagine it only works if you can create that agreement up front. If you tried to, try to do it on your own and not say anything about it, maybe it would be much harder.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, trading can be a lonely journey if you're doing it by yourself, right? I've tried to get her into it. She doesn't have any interest, but um, because I think she'd be great at that. She's got more discipline than I do, and I think she could do great. But no, she's been, I mean, absolutely instrumental and just helping out with the psychology piece, kind of helping me walk back through things. Hey, how are you feeling at the time? This, that, and the other thing. So
Do you rely on her to catch those types of things, or do you find that introspection on your own in terms of where you're at psychologically before you start taking trades for the day?
uh, I find it more so on my own now that I've kind of learned how to do it. But at the time, she's always been great at being able to read my moods at any given moment. She knows if I'm in a bad mood or not a great mood to stay out of the market, right? Because you're going to do something stupid, right? You just are. So she would come in and check every once in a while. Hey, how you doing? And she could just tell by the tone of my voice whether or not things are going well or not. So, and if they weren't, she'd be like, hey, all right, per our agreement, right? Come with me. So that was part of our trading plan is me being accountable to her and kind of going through the results of the day, win, loss, or otherwise.
You do a market review or a trading day review with her every day?
I used to do it every day. Now it's usually more so weekly. Now that we've kind of got everything figured out. But yeah, at the time was, yeah, I'm going to go through every day and kind of walk through what I did, how many trades, etc. We had made an agreement of how many trades I can do a day. If you get to a certain profit level, walk away, be done. Or if you get to a certain loss level, one of the risk management pieces I don't think they talk about as often is, they say don't take big size, right? Keep your size small. They don't hear you can keep your size small, but if you're doing 50 to 100 trades just off of emotion, that's just as bad.
It's a really good point, and it's one of the things that stood out to me as we started to assemble the rules for the automated strategy was that you only traded one contract at a time. And
Yep.
that was important to note because it keeps your risk relatively flat across time. But
Mhm.
then is it also correct that in general you only trade one time per day as well? If you lose that trade at the beginning, are you done for the day or do you get back in at some point?
I usually allot myself 3 a day, depending on the day. If the first one's a loss and the second one's a loss, then I'm done. Obviously, I'm not seeing something right. Come back, fight another day. If I have one win, one loss, I just can't go negative at that point. So if the stop isn't there to justify the risk to keep me positive, then I can't take the trade.
Got it. And that
And I still only trade one contract.
I think it's fantastic. I
Yep.
think, but that makes sense because it lines up with your viewpoint around this being an income stream to
Mhm.
help you add to your longer term positions, right?
Yep. Exactly.
And I think that takes discipline. Do I have it correct that at some point in your career you were also in the Marine Corps?
Well, quite a while ago, 2002 to 2006. I was in the Marine Corps, first fast company, and then the infantry out in 29 Palms.
It may be a silly question, but do you think some of that supported your discipline today?
I think it has for sure. I think even more so from a systematic approach of getting a solid plan down has really helped. And when the plan doesn't go right, not panicking and being able to calmly figure out your next move.
So, can you speak to some of your longer term position trades at all and how you decide what companies to invest in for longer periods?
Yeah. So right at this point, I don't have any position trades on. Most of what I have is tied up in awful mutual funds through Fidelity, which is not that Fidelity is awful. I'm just not a fan of mutual funds. Um, but through my firm that I work with now, but also before, right? That's where all of our retirement went. So the only control I get out of that is which fund to go in. So whether it's small cap or things like that, so I can actually analyze what's in the fund and decide from that standpoint if I want to be a part of it. But otherwise, yeah, when everything kind of went south at the beginning of the year, it's just for me, it's been kind of a wait and hold, and I'll get in at some point on, you know, probably Microsoft and Apple. Honestly, those are probably the only two right now that I would have some interest in.
So that makes me wonder if you have some long-term technical that you kind of take a look at to decide, are we in a back in a bull market again?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
I do. In fact, I ran the Fibonacci that I do on the Dow Jones from the market low back in the early 1900s to the 1920s high to the market crash in the 30s. And at each key Fibonacci level was some major economic event, whether it was the 1970s, 60s, and 70s, where everything was just kind of choppy. That's right around the 100% level, where typically on a normal, even chart on a small time frame, everything's choppy. The dot-com bubble was, I think, from what I had it, the end of wave 5, right? So everything kind of went down, retested almost, I think, to the 0.786, and then the market crash for housing hit and tanked everything. So it was almost like a perfect 1, 2, 3 and down, like it was already set up. COVID was a perfect level. The economic or what was crash of 87, the 1-day market pullback, that was right at a perfect level as well.
Do you have a viewpoint on where markets are going over the next few months?
I do. I honestly think right now that I think we've hit the low for this market correction. And I do think that we are in somewhat of a wave 4 on the way up that's going to roll back down. And at that point, it's either going to break that low and turn into a wave 5 and we're going to get another run down, or we're going to see, the bull stepping in really hard, kind of right around, well, probably right around the 0.618 from the low to the high, whatever that is. You're going to see some big volatility around that area. So that's kind of the direction I'm waiting for. And if they can hold that level and get it to turn up, I think we're good.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Well, cool. I am really excited to continue to work on some strategies with you that we can release to our subscribers, and would be happy to cover any other interviews in the future with you as well if you have any other ideas you'd like to share.
Sounds good. My mind's always churning with different strategy ideas, so I'm all about it.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that. Thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.